This video will review the correct pronunciation for the 5 vowels in Spanish. In English, we call these vowels A, E, I, O, and U. In Spanish, we call these vowels A, E, O, and U. Let's start with the English A. In English, this vowel can be pronounced in many different ways, like A in apple, like A in same, or like A in car. However, in Spanish, A is pronounced the same way every time. In Spanish, A is pronounced like the way we pronounce the A in car. A, A, A. Here are some examples of Spanish words that demonstrate this pronunciation of the letter A. Caminar, which means to walk. Alfabeto, which means alphabet. And araña, which means spider. Notice that all of these words have multiple A's in them. Each time the letter A is pronounced exactly the same. Listen again. Caminar, alfabeto, araña. Now let's continue with the English E. In English, this vowel can be pronounced in 2 different ways, like E in need or like E in elephant. However, in Spanish, E is pronounced the same way every time. In Spanish, E is pronounced like the way we pronounce the E in elephant. E, e, e. Here are some examples of Spanish words that demonstrate this pronunciation of the letter E. Elefante, which means elephant. Diferente, which means different. And necesitar, which means to need. Notice that all of these words have multiple E's in them. Each time the letter E is pronounced exactly the same. Listen again. Elefante. Diferente. Necesitar. Now let's continue with the English I. In English, this vowel can be pronounced in many different ways, like I in sit, like I in nice, or like E in drink. However, in Spanish, I is pronounced the same way every time. In Spanish, I is pronounced like the way we pronounce the I in drink. E, E, E. Here are some examples of Spanish words that demonstrate this pronunciation of the letter I. Iglesia, which means church. Escribir, which means to write. And vivir, which means to live. Notice that all of these words have multiple I's in them. Each time the letter I is pronounced exactly the same. Listen again. Iglesia. Escribir. Vivir. Now, let's continue with the English O. In English, this vowel can be pronounced in many different ways, like in oven, like A in coffee, or like O in hello. However, in Spanish, O is pronounced the same way every time. In Spanish, O is pronounced like the way we pronounce the O in hello. O, O, O. Here are some examples of Spanish words that demonstrate this pronunciation of the letter O. Ojo, which means eye. Teléfono, which means telephone. And pollo, which means chicken. Notice that all of these words have multiple O's in them. Each time the letter O is pronounced exactly the same. Listen again. Ojo, teléfono, pollo. To finish, let's end with the English U. In English, this vowel can be pronounced in many different ways, like in upset, like U in unicorn, and like U in tulip. However, in Spanish, U is pronounced the same way every time. In Spanish, U is pronounced like the way we pronounce the U in tulip. U, U, U. Here are some examples of Spanish words that demonstrate this pronunciation of the letter U. Uva, which means grape, gusano, which means worm, and universo, which means universe. Notice that with all of these different words, the letter U is pronounced exactly the same. Listen again. Uva, gusano, and universo. Let's review the sounds that each of these vowels make in Spanish. A, E, I, O, U. A, I, O, U. Say it with me. A, I, O, U. One more time. A, I, O, U. Muy bien. Good job. Keep practicing and you'll be sounding like a native Spanish speaker in no time.